Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, firstly, thank you for coming on. A lot of people don't, and it makes me very sad because people come in the chat and it's just so much easier to just talk it out than have a back and forth and not know what someone means or is saying. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I could see why that it's very controversial. So I can see why that happens.
Okay, well, yeah. I'm thinking what a good thing to do would be to read out what you've sent me.
Sure.
Yeah, and then kind of like go through some of my confusion and try and clarify what you mean first, and then we can like go from there. Does that sound all right?
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah, sounds
thanks.
sounds good.
Thanks. Okay, so these are your words here. So you said, firstly, I don't necessarily have anything against veganism. However, I think the reason I'm not fully aligned with the vegan camp is because I believe human existence at its core is inherently harmful to the environment and the animals within it. And therefore, I believe the choice to be vegan or not depends ultimately on personal values. While I do think it's important to strive to minimize these harms, I'm not sure finger pointing at others is the most constructive approach. I've also seen some of your videos on dog meat products, and honestly, I like them. I think these types of content present a great philosophical and moral question to our dietary choices. On a further note, I'm not against the consumption of dog meat. While I'm not in support of it, I don't think I'm in any position to advocate against this practice. So that's the chunk. Essentially, that's your position. Was there anything that you wanted to add before we proceed?
No, I think if we throughout our discussion we find that there's things that need to be discussed, I'm happy to elaborate. But I think that I don't know. I think that's enough for us to go off
Yeah,
initially.
I reckon. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay. So the first thing I want to get clarity on then is the part, I think this would be, because I've got two main confusions. So this is kind of the smaller one.
Okay.
So when you say I'm not against the consumption of dog meat, but then you say while I'm not in support of it, my mind is a bit confused. I'm just a bit confused there because when I say I'm not in support of something, what I'm saying is I am against it. So what do you mean? What's your position? Yeah, if you see someone selling like dog meat, what is your actual position on that?
Let's say I'm walking the street and someone is selling dog meat. If I'm in North America, so I would firstly be quite surprised by that's happening, but I wouldn't necessarily be like against it. I wouldn't go out and be like, "Why are you doing this?" or anything. Yeah, I would just be surprised and just kind of go about on my day. I wouldn't actually do anything or be against it. I wouldn't try to stop it or anything like that. But I wouldn't support it. I wouldn't buy it or I wouldn't try it, I guess.
Okay, it's just so that obviously what we do think to mention, it serves some sort of purpose. So why do you find the dog meat stuff? You can't see right now unless you're watching the stream, but I am watching the wearing the Elwood's organic dog meat t-shirt. Why did
Oh,
you
okay.
why did you think to mention it? Is like
You mean in the email?
yeah, because you
Well,
yeah. Sorry,
yeah.
you go ahead.
Sorry. Well, it's because when first joined your live, that was the topic that you were discussing at that point. And it
Okay.
seemed to, yeah, and that is why I kind of hopped in initially and I said, I'm personally actually not against the consumption of dog meat. I know people do this depending on where they live. And I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, especially from the Western world where, dogs are companion animals and they're pets, versus in other parts of the world where that dogs might be food. There's clearly different perspectives and values about how dogs should be treated. And I personally kind of think it's everyone's right to, I guess, if they want to eat dogs, then it's in their right to do so. And I don't think I'm in any position to say like that's wrong or right or however position.
Okay, so say if you were, like removed and we weren't looking at you as an individual, because, a smoker can say that smoking's bad for you, right? So
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can just be like hypocritical in those ways. So are you
Okay.
just saying you don't think it's morally wrong to pay for dogs to be killed to eat them?
Well, morals is subjective, right? I mean, according to my moral compass, I wouldn't want to eat dogs, but I don't think it's necessarily right or wrong. That's all kind of, I think it's all just subjective at that point, and I don't know if there's any good grounds to advocate against or support for it.
Sorry, when you say morality is subjective, like
Yeah.
I'm hearing it differently. So obviously you can be a moral objectivist, you can be a moral subjectivist, but a moral
Mm.
subjectivist can still have a view that something's morally wrong. So do you, just to be clear, like obviously if you think morality is subjective, that's kind of like irrelevant to what I'm like asking. Do you sorry do you believe that it is morally wrong to kill a dog for food? You personally, as a subjectivist?
I personally, yeah, I wouldn't be in support of it. So I guess, yeah, according to my morals, I guess that would be wrong, quote unquote.
Okay, so you're not in support of dog meat.
Sure, I guess you could say that. I
Okay,
mean, I wouldn't support it. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, just to be to clear, when I'm asking, when you say I wouldn't support it, do you mean you just wouldn't fund it, or do you principally wouldn't support it?
I just don't think I would fund it. Like I wouldn't partake, I wouldn't buy dog meat products, but I wouldn't advocate against for it. I wouldn't be like it's wrong. That I think that's just kind of my opinion at that point.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Someone just gave me a massive super chat, and I'm so sorry
Oh,
to be so rude. I've got
no, no,
yeah. Sorry, repeat.
understandable. No,
Yeah,
totally justified.
yeah.
I said I wouldn't financially support it,
Okay.
like I wouldn't buy it, but I wouldn't actively kind of say that what they're doing is wrong or right. I wouldn't go that far. I would just not buy it, and that would be the
So
extent of it.
okay, so sorry, I'm really trying to figure out your kind of position because I'm trying to work out whether or not you. So there's nothing in your mind where you'd say principally it would be bad for me to stab this dog to eat them. There's nothing going on there. You just think no, that's morally permissible.
Well, I mean, it I would hope that if they are consuming dog meat and they're producing dog meat products, I would want them to be done in as humane as a way possible. So like they're not kind of left in a cage outside or whatever, or they're not tortured and things like that. But I don't think it's in my position to be like, you killing that dog is wrong and you shouldn't be doing that. I don't think that's my place to advocate for that.
Okay. So I think I've got your view.
Yeah,
This thing, like obviously, because as we're working through it, you said you're interested in kind of hearing the vegan position on things. When someone,
absolutely.
yeah, when someone says as humanely as possible when they're killing someone, that rings like alarm bells for me for me, because I don't see a morally significant difference between humans and other animals.
Mhm.
If I said, oh well, I killed my next door neighbor, but I did it as humanely as possible, it would just to me that would sound absolutely unhinged. I don't know like how I would as humanely as possible or why that would be something to point out. I've killed my neighbor in that scenario.
Mhm.
So when you say that, what are you trying to say? Like, do you think there's a humane way to kill a dog to eat them?
Well, first of all, I think your neighbor is completely different from that of let's say, like a dog that is being produced for uh, dog meat, right? I think most people would agree that going to your neighbor's house and stabbing their pet dog, is wrong and should not be done. And I don't think anyone would support that. But I think it's a bit different when there are certain countries in the world where their culture is to maybe eat dog meat and they farm dogs and do so in a way, right or wrong. I mean, that's another issue, but I think it's contextually a little bit different from going to your neighbor and stabbing their animal. I
Okay.
just kind of, I think it's two separate things.
All right. So say if we were in a culture then where culturally we farmed human beings, there was a specific kind of human being. They had purple eyes, and they had a really tasty flesh. And my neighbour so happened to be a human who with purple eyes who had escaped from a farm. And culturally, yeah, it was just we had these humans and we farmed them. Would you then see a morally significant difference between that, like stabbing them? You'd think, oh no, actually, yeah, they were bred for the purpose of human meat, so actually it wouldn't be so bad to stab that neighbor.
Interesting hypothetical. So, am I the same species as that purple-eyed human?
Yeah, we could say human. It's the same kind of same genome. They're close enough.
Just kind of like different race, I guess.
Yeah, they're just a different race, but this different race has purple eyes. That's like the only really distinguishing factor. They're just farmed though, because they have really tasty flesh.
Man, well, in that hypothetical, I mean, it's a hypothetical, so I don't know how, how accurate my opinion would be in then, but I would want to say that I wouldn't support that. I would probably try to go for an alternative diet because I'm eating my own species. I personally, I would find that weird.
Okay, so not so much weird because obviously we want to
morally wrong.
Morally wrong.
Sorry,
okay.
Yeah.
So then that this is the issue. So we've now established that there's going to be a morally significant difference between humans and other animals that you find means that these other animals they lack the value whereby it would be wrong to exploit them and stab them. So what is that difference that's present in all of these animals that makes that okay?
Well, my only grounds would be that I am also a human, and I just draw the line at which eating the same one of your own species is morally wrong. That would be my own personal and subjective moral view.
Can I ask why?
Well, it wouldn't allow for me to justify why I shouldn't be farmed and why another human, it just, I wouldn't be able to establish or justify why I'm not farmed and why I'm allowed to eat other humans. I think that would be just like a weird hypothetical there,
So anyone who is not Homo sapiens sapiens, so like anyone with Neanderthal, anyone who's a Neanderthal, like any of our ancestral line, like, so say someone's like 51% Neanderthal, that you think, oh no, that would be morally justified like these other animals. But if they're Homo sapiens sapien, then no, that would be bad because they're like me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you kind of go dig deep enough, there will be eventually a gray line, but I think the same could also be said for a vegan diet, no?
What do you mean, sorry?
Oh, so I mean, if you kind of go dig deep into like the species and the kind of the groupings and where the line is between what a human is and what not a human is, and there eventually will come a time where it's all gray and it's not unclear. But I think similar kind of gray lines also exist for vegan diets, where I'm assuming here, but your guidelines are on the principle of the sentient beings and they shouldn't be exploited, right?
Yes, it's pretty much that.
But there eventually, if you go down the trophic levels, there will come a line where sentience is arguable and you will be exploiting certain animals and killing certain animals in the harvesting of certain crops or vegetables. And I think if you dig deep enough, both my perspective and your perspective, there will be a gray line in which your ultimate judgment is based on your personal values.
Yeah, but that would apply in the case of humans as well. I think you can be for human rights while still, paying for plants and stuff, because like humans are also exploited in the process, or even killed in the process of I think what you're getting at is like everything, when you push it enough, will have some sort of weird bullet biting or weird kind of I agree, but I wouldn't then say, okay, don't be for human rights just because if you do believe in human rights, there's going to be these kind of difficult scenarios that pop up that mean that you might not end up having the preferable outcome happen that aligns with your views. So I don't.
And sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, because if we kind of take your view, at least I can say I wouldn't perpetually exploit and kill Neanderthals. I wouldn't perpetually exploit and kill aliens. I wouldn't perpetually exploit and kill. Like, where does it go? Is it the body of a human? Is it the consciousness of a human? If I put the consciousness of a human in a cow, can I perpetually exploit and kill them? Like, at least I could say, oh, they wouldn't be perpetually exploited and killed, but under your view, as long as they're Homo sapiens sapien, they are safe. But if you're outside that, then yeah, you can be perpetually exploited and killed without it being morally wrong. So
Sure, but also same for veganism too. Yeah, like if so, bees, I think I'm assuming among the vegan community are considered sentient. But where does that line stop? Is it from ladybugs or ants, caterpillars? There's a lot of insect deaths too that occur, and also mammal deaths that occur from plant harvesting. And I think ultimately you have to kind of judge on what level of exploitation you're okay with and whatnot. And I'm not saying that justifies meat eating, but I think ultimately what we need to do is try to do these things, or harvesting meat, whatever, in a way that is least harmful. I think that's kind of where I stand. I don't necessarily think that my perspective is better than yours. I don't think yours is better than mine. I think it's ultimately just personal values. That's kind of where I stand.
well, the problem is, like, you've just said ultimately, and you did say in the email, you said, while I do think it's important to strive to minimize these harms. So I don't know why then you're not seeing that your view aligns with the vegan position, because if you're going to talk about crop deaths, and you brought up like trophic levels, well, do you think that there's more harm caused in a plant-based diet or plant-based lifestyle than there would be one including animal agriculture, where you feed the 70 plus billion land animals, you have animals killed to protect them, the farmed animals, you have them like driving species extinction? Do you think that which one do you think's minimizing in those two categories?
Yeah, I would think vegan diet is certainly healthier for the environment. And if you are to consider the harm done to the animals that are involved, I think vegan diet is better. But I think, so many things that we do just by living is harmful to the environment. And you just kind of have to draw the line of what to do or what not to do, right? Even for driving a car, that you could argue that that is harmful to the environment with all
Sorry.
the. Sorry.
Yeah, just we haven't got to the environment part yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just
Okay.
talking about harm in terms of sentient beings. Like I'm
Okay.
assuming you mean minimize these harms. I know you were talking about environment there, but we'll get onto that bit in a minute if you'd like to. But yeah, like you said it's important to minimize these harms. So what do you mean by it's important to, like, if you, because you know what, let's just go to what I was going to say. This is the bit that I'm kind of confused by, because you
Okay.
say the reason I'm not fully aligned with the vegan camp is because I believe human existence at its core is inherently harmful to the environment and the animals within it. And then you say, well, therefore, I believe the choice to be vegan or not depends ultimately on personal values. But then you go on
Yeah.
to say, I do think it's important to strive to minimize these harms. Would you hold this for like human beings? Like if I said, well, humans are harmful for the environment and like bad things happen. It's just my personal value that like I'm just going to harm as many humans as possible because they're bad for the environment. Like would you hold this view for the human? Like if I did exactly what you're doing and I said, oh yeah, well this would probably minimize the harm, but I'm actively not going to do it. I'm going to pay for the more harmful option. Would you sign off on that being acceptable?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you asking if I'm yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question
Okay,
there.
yeah. So right, so you're coming to me, for example. So you've said, the vegan kind of behavior that would lead to less harm, like of animals, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you've said it's important to strive to minimize that harm,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not vegan yourself, so you're doing it a more
No.
harmful option. So
Sure.
that's what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, right? In the human context, say if there were like a human farm or something that was a direct rights violation to a human being, if would you sign off on taking the position that, yeah, I believe it is important to minimize the harms done to humans, and I have these kind of two options here. I'm going to pick the more harmful one, though. Is that how you would conduct yourself?
Well, it would depend, certainly. I would have to assess what type of harm that is done, and I would just have to personally value what kind of choices I want to make. And I think, yeah, I would probably try to go for the least harmful option, but there's a lot of circumstances surrounding that decision too. So, like for example, price or the accessibility, maybe just purely convenience. So, yeah, ultimately, it would just be dependent on my personal values, I think.
Okay, so it's just kind of confusing because you're laying out your personal value. You said your personal value is to minimize harm. That's your personal value, right?
Well, I would want it to. Like, I think that's the reason why there are researchers in certain fields that are trying to minimize the harms in animal agriculture, probably same with plant agriculture. And I think I support this. I think it's important that there are research being conducted to actively try to progress towards more humane production of these certain things. But I don't know if we can expect it from the average person who works 9 to 5 to also subscribe to minimizing these harms actively in their daily lives. I just don't know how feasible that is.
Sorry, I don't know how we've got there quite yet. I'm just asking you about your personal values. So you're talking about how it just comes down to one's personal values. And you've given me the personal value of yours, saying that you think it's important to strive to minimize these harms. But then I'm kind of confused. Then you're not really living out your values because you're saying here, oh yeah, no, this would be the less harmful option, and I do think it's important to minimize these harms, but I'm not going to do it. So why do you have that personal value in the first place?
Uh, why I have personal values that I think there should be less harm?
Well, yeah, if you're specifically here, if you're sat here saying I do think that's important, and here is there's two examples here. I'm picking the more harmful one. I'm not going to pick the less harmful one. I'm not in that camp. Well, I'm just wondering what the point is of holding that value if you're not going to even live it out.
Well, I guess I would just I personally I think beef production, sure, it results in the death of the cow, uh, but I think it's being done in a way that is progressing towards being less humane. And I think ultimately you just kind of, because our dietary choices are so ingrained in our historical and cultural practice, I don't. Uh, I guess I would just have to say that I personally don't want to quit at the current point in time, but I think it's these kind of personal values are just also the same for anyone. Like my personal values on why I decide to be or choose not to be vegan is just as justified as someone else who choose to be vegan. I think it's all just ultimately everyone's just personal values.
But yeah, but do you hold that personal value if you're not going to live it out? That's my question.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's important that we are doing animal production and working towards the direction of less harm. I think I totally support that.
Okay, so hang on though. Like, do you not think it's inherently harmful to exploit and kill an individual? It's inherently harmful,
Yeah.
and we yeah.
Yes.
So if you're saying to minimize these harms, like a great way to minimize them would to be not to breed these animals into existence in the first place. Why are we talking about, oh, let's find ways to kill them better? Or you wouldn't accept this in the human context, and there's something about the dog context that feels weird for you, but you said that's morally justified. You did right.
Well, depend. Yeah, I mean, I think someone else's perspective who choose to eat dog meat is just as justified as my perspective for not choosing to support or not choosing to eat dog meat.
Wait, so if you all think it's just down to personal values, so it was Jeffrey Dahmer's personal value that he should be justified in like killing humans and eating them. Do you think he's just as valid as you?
Well, I mean, my personal value would say that no, and I think again, I think it's majority of just how the society is being functioned. There's laws against killing humans, so
Yeah.
Jeffrey Dahmer would
Sorry
just
to
be in violation.
interrupt because
Yeah.
we keep going to like descriptive, like what society says and stuff like that, just to say what you say. So there's an asymmetry there. So you said I think someone who would think it's right to eat dogs would be just as valid as my view that it might not be, or whatever you said. But basically, theirs is just as valid. But then as soon as I talked about Jeffrey Dahmer talking about eating humans, there wasn't that answer. So why is this kind of asymmetry in the responses? Because they're both socially unacceptable, right?
Sure. Well, I think one not so socially acceptable. It depends on where you are.
Okay, but basically, if you're going to say, oh, it's all subjective, it's all down to personal values, I don't know. I'm sorry to kind of mind read or psychoanalyze or anything, but I'm really struggling to see how you actually believe that. Because if you do believe that, oh, it's literally just down to personal values, it's down to what you want to do, completely up to you, then the answer to that would surely be, oh, yeah, no, Jeffrey Dahmer was allowed that view.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I mean, it's the same again. I think it's the same as the argument for finding the gray line for a vegan diet on which animal is sentient or not. And again, it would ultimately be your personal value that certain animals are just qualified for care while others are not. I think you just can't.
No, sorry. So when people are talking about sentience, what we're doing is, it's not like personally I think this one is sentient and this one isn't. It's referring to the consensus on whether or not the sentience has been established in that individual animal. So
yes, and if you
I don't know why I'm so confused as to why we're talking about that as a response to that. How have we got here?
Well, I mean, sentience is the basis in which you judge certain which animals can be exploited and not. And sentience,
of course, if you're not, would you agree that if you're not a subject, if you're not having an experience, you can't be exploited, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
But that entire basis of sentience is also argued, right? It's also subjective. Some researchers might argue that fruit flies are sentient while others don't. If you dig down enough, there will be a point in which there's a gray line. And if you talk about the consensus among researchers, then a lot of animal ethicists would argue that human sentience is, in a different level compared to other sentience. I'm not saying that I agree with this perspective, but, ultimately, I think if you dig deep down enough to every decision that we make, it will become personal values.
I'm confused to how that's got relevant to what I said prior.
Well, you're essentially comparing whether my personal beliefs would hold true for Jeffrey Dahmer's actions.
I asked you if you thought so. How we got to Jeffrey Dahmer is because you said someone thinking that it would be justified to eat dog meat, you'd find that viewpoint just as valid as yours. Then I asked if Jeffrey Dahmer was just as valid. The only difference was the human meat. And you were like, no, it depends. And then you started talking about other people. So I didn't actually get your answer. Do you think his view is just as valid as yours for human eating?
Well, in his light, I guess so.
Oh, no, sorry. We keep doing this. I'm talking. I just want your view. I don't want I just want to know if you think it's just as valid as the dog meat eating guy, and you are they all just as valid? That's because I'm trying to see if it follows in the human context, because you have said it's all down to personal values. So I'm kind of confused. If it's all down to personal values, we shouldn't have a problem surely with Jeffrey Dahmer, because that's his personal value. It should just be as valid as yours, right?
I don't think it's the same for killing and torturing a human. That would be against my moral perspective.
Okay, but if it's his personal value, why isn't it valid? Because you said it's all down to personal values. So I think this is a confusion, because I teeter on, subjectivism probably being the way. I'm really still not kind of sure, but I really don't think it even needs to be down to, it's all down to personal values, or anything like that. I don't like, I mean, if you want to boil it down, I guess it could be. But for me, it's kind of like which one like wins out, which one seems more favorable. And like, yeah, the human eating doesn't seem favorable or anything. Neither does the dog eating, though. Neither does the other animal eating who are sentient beings. And why doesn't it? Because just like us, a pig in a gas chamber is going to writhe and be petrified and be choking and having this horrific experience in their brain, like just like I would. So I don't know why for you it stops at human, because you said before that the morally significant difference is because you're a human, and you think, I can't remember exactly, but yeah, because human. But what experience? Because obviously humans are all having a very different experience. We all see the world very differently. So I'm not sure even why that's the difference that means something to you.
Well, it's because I'm also a human, and I that's where I personally draw the moral line.
Okay, so for example, so say, I'm not going to do this obviously, but for legal reasons, say if I stab you, okay?
Okay.
It'd be bad for you, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so is that why you value me not stabbing you? Because it would be bad for you?
Man, I don't know about that. I think that's kind of straying to a different conversation, no?
What do you mean?
I mean, we're kind of talking about now morals and like what is right or wrong. And
Yeah, sorry. When I say bad, just to clarify. Oh no. Yeah, this is the point to why it'd be wrong. Okay, so let me explain why I'm saying this. Okay, so
sure.
It would be bad for someone to stab me. Okay, for me it would be bad. Just like it would be bad for a pig, it would feel bad for a cow, it'd feel bad for a chicken. And typically, what is understood, though we may agree on subjectivism, morality being subjective, it seems to be the case a lot of the time that of which causes harm we take to be bad. Not all the time. You have things like BDSM where pain can be good, but as a general heuristic, pain bad, harm bad. And when I say bad, I mean wrong. So to inflict that on a human, it's not a unique thing, right? It's not just a human who can feel that pain, who can feel that fear. It's not just a human who, if you kill, you've taken away their ability to experience and feel positive emotions, those good things. So why would it just be... I would pose a question to myself, and I did. Why would it just be bad and then wrong to stab a human, but not also stab other animals?
Yeah. Again, I think like it's an excellent point, but I think ultimately like our existence entirely is exploitative, right? Again, like even harvesting grain, you might till the soil and that might kill mice. You could potentially argue that harvesting grain is bad for mice, or using pesticides will lead to insect deaths, and these poisoned insects might get eaten by birds and they might die. Like I think if you go down our actions long enough, there will be harm, and ultimately these kind of decisions ultimately will be on personal values.
Kai, I don't know. Can I am going to say something. It might come across as rude, and I'm sorry, but like,
yeah,
when I'm kind of like, it feels like I might be cornering you a couple of times, because then when we get here, you don't actually answer the question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no,
what was your question?
It's okay. So yeah, because then I end up forgetting. I've got a very short-term memory. Okay?
So sorry.
Yeah,
that's
okay.
Mean to do that.
So yeah, I'm asking. You got me right. No, I was asking. Why would it be bad? Wrong to just stab a human being, but not these other animals who can also experience that thing. That was my question. And then you were talking about personal values.
Why would it be bad to stab certain animals but not humans?
Yeah. Oh no, just because. Oh yeah. No, I remember what I was going to say now. Okay. Yeah, the reason I got frustrated was because you
Oh,
said,
sorry.
it's okay. You said, oh, yeah, but no matter what, instead of actually answering the question, you responded by saying, oh, yeah, but there's going to be harm. But that doesn't even engage with your own position. You said it's important to minimize the harm. Even in your own position, I think you acknowledge you can't be without harm. I'm not. The vegans aren't posing a world without harm. I don't even. That's fairy tale land. I don't
Yeah.
think you can. So nobody's saying here. Okay, well, here's the vegan position. All harm gone. It is. Nobody's saying that. So I don't know why we're going. Why are we going there?
Okay.
Do you know why you said you responded that way?
Well, why I suggested my perspective.
Well, so I asked, why is it bad, to stab a human? And then I went on to explain, I don't know why it would be so bad to stab a human, but then it would be fine for these other animals because the experience is going to be bad and harmful to all of these animals, right? In this as the example. But then as a response, you were saying, oh yeah, but no matter what, there's going to be some harm. And I don't know how that response came to be, because I acknowledge there's going to be some harm. You acknowledge there's going to be some harm. So I'm not sure what relevance that has to the question and the comments I was making about stabbing a human being bad as well as a pig, a cow, a chicken.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that it's all bad.
Oh, so you do think it would be bad to stab a pig?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want to see that. That would be very upsetting.
Okay, so you do think it's bad to stab a pig, but you don't think it's bad to stab a dog?
Oh, I think it's bad to stab a dog too. That's my personal moral value.
Now, forgive me. I thought I wrote here that you didn't think it was morally wrong to kill dogs for food. So now you do think it's wrong to kill dogs for food and pigs for food.
Well, I mean,
Because you're going to stab them or you're going to gas them. I imagine that you think that the harm that stabbing would inflict would also be something that gassing them or slitting their throat, bolt gunning them in the head. These are all things that would be harmful, right? So do you?
yeah, I'm answering bad in the sense that whether I think it causes harm or pain to the animal. I would agree. I think it's bad in that sense.
Okay, but you don't think it's wrong?
I think people just have it's their decision. I think.
Kai, you did it again. You talked about other people.
Okay.
Do you think it's wrong?
To farm animals? No, not necessarily.
So you don't think it's wrong to stab them, to gas them for food?
No, not necessarily.
Can you explain what you mean by necessarily?
Well, I mean, again, because we need to survive, right? I think if you kind of try to say oh, this is bad and we therefore should not do it, then we just shouldn't live. I feel like that would be the ultimate conclusion that we would lead to. So we ultimately have to make a choice on what kind of harms we have to do.
Wait, sorry, can you explain that last bit? What we would need, what it would end up going down? What do you mean?
Well, if you try to minimize these harms, right? Say stabbing a cow is bad and therefore we shouldn't do it. If you go down that line, you will eventually lead to a point where it's my entire existence is bad in some way, therefore I shouldn't exist.
I don't understand how you've got there, because you wouldn't think that in a human context. You've literally said it's important. You think it's important to minimize harm, but you acknowledge that you can't be without harm, even to human beings. So do you think you should just harm human beings? Because if you get down to it, no matter what, if we keep pressuring, there's going to be some your existence ultimately going to be bad, so we shouldn't bother.
So are you asking what is the exact question?
Sorry, yes. So you said to me the we need to survive. So I've said oh, do you think stabbing animals is wrong? And you said no, because basically we need to survive, and if we want to go down this road, then ultimately my existence is going to be harmful, right?
Yes.
So what I'm asking you is do you apply this in the human context? Would you say, okay, well, because it's sounding like an appeal to futility or like a Nirvana fallacy, because we cannot avoid that harm. If we want to start critiquing things that are harmful and avoiding those things, well, then we're going to have to say, oh yeah, no, that actually our existence is bad. So would you just be like, oh yeah, no, commit all those human rights violations, be as harmful as possible? Because if we start pulling at things and critiquing things, then, oh, well, my existence is going to be bad. Would you apply that in the human context?
No, I mean, exploiting other beings is inherently bad, but I think like these decisions, again, like whether to be vegan or not, will again come down to your personal values on what kind of harm is acceptable or not. And I think these perspectives are just it's just personal values again.
Kai, you're doing it. You're killing me. Okay, right. Listen to me. Okay, you keep going to the personal values thing. I know that you think it's like down to personal values.
Yeah.
But let's just a very quick. Just if I said I'm going to be as harmful as possible, because like I can't stop all harm, and if I really want to go down that route, my existence would be harmful. Would you sign off on that behavior? You would agree with that and think, oh no, that's fine because like
that you can be as harmful as possible.
Yeah, I can stab like people, human beings, without it being a problem. Because really, if I want to talk about stabbing humans being wrong, then like my existence is going to be like inherently harmful and a problem. Like you just said about in the animal context, because I asked you if stabbing dogs and pigs was wrong, and you said no because of that reason. So would you give the same reason if I was gonna stab a human?
No, I don't think you can kind of go that way and say, oh, because we're already doing harm, we can just do more harm. I don't think that's a.
I agree. I agree with that position. So that's why when you're saying it in the animal context, I'm getting confused, because I wouldn't. That's like a Nirvana fallacy.
I'm not familiar with the Nirvana fallacy.
Yeah, so I'm maybe going to butcher this, but it's essentially because we can't, strive for, because we can't have Nirvana, because we can't have perfection, we shouldn't bother.
Sure.
That's fallacious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're deploying here, when I'm asking, would it be wrong to stab a pig or a dog, is a fallacy. So that, like, I'm just trying to understand what the actual argument is that means it's not wrong.
Yeah, well, I feel like we're going in a loop, but I think that's where I kind of disconnect from your perspective, because you can say, you can use that argument to say that my beliefs about farming animals is wrong, but if you go down the line enough, then our plant agriculture is also harmful. And
yeah, no, we can sign off on it being harmful, but we are saying we're trying to minimize harm. It's the vegan, just like in human rights, you can be a human rights activist and you're trying to minimize the harm. That doesn't mean that when you purchase something or you do something, it's not causing some harm to humans. Have you seen The Good Place?
No, I'm not. I don't even know what that is. Sorry.
Okay, it's a TV show, but basically, spoiler alert for anyone. You don't mind spoilers?
Oh, are you? I guess this will be. I generally prefer not to be spoiled, but I'll just listen for the sake of. I think you're making a point.
Basically, like everyone's going to the bad place because the way the calculus is being done is that they are buying an apple and it's causing rights violations to a human down the line. It's not avoidable. But that doesn't suddenly mean, we can go out and commit loads of human rights violations just because the harm cannot. Again, it's a Nirvana fallacy. So basically, what you're saying is you have this view that we shouldn't bother avoiding rights violations to other animals because we can't rid of it all.
Not necessarily. I think, I know I'm kind of being on this live, I'm kind of coming off as being anti-vegan, but I truly commend the vegan community for their actions. And I think it's great. But I also think there's different ways in which you can try to strive for minimizing animal harm. and it's not just by being vegan. I think there's different ways in which you can try to better the lives of animals.
I think we need to hash out something specific because we keep coming to this point. Okay.
Okay.
So when I asked for the morally significant difference between humans and other animals, you said that it was because you're human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you signed off on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you signing off on like perpetually killing like Neanderthals, like aliens, like any species having an experience who could be sentient, our ancestral line before Homo sapien sapien, all of them, kill them, and that's fine, but not Homo sapien sapien, right?
Yeah, I guess that would be where I stand. Yes.
Okay, now I must say that sounds wild to me.
I mean, honestly, it sounds wild to me too. But yeah.
This is why I went vegan, because I had to say some things that I just didn't actually feel comfortable saying. Like, because in front of me, like, could I really kill like a Neanderthal? Could I really kill an alien? Could I really kill ET?
Yeah.
Could I really kill all these? Could I sit there and watch little ETs in the trillions be perpetually killed? No, I couldn't. I would think that's disgusting and wrong. Every TV show I've watched, basically, like Superman, perpetually kill him. All of it. He's not human. He's an alien. So he can be farmed and exploited and killed. So I think what the thing that like I'm really intrigued by is obviously, you know, human beings. We have a specific kind of connection to them. You know, like because
To
we are
them.
humans.
Sorry, who's them?
Humans, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, to
So,
us.
yeah,
Okay.
we have a specific connection to humans, and I can understand that. So when someone says, "Oh, like I value them because I'm human and they're human," like can that be unpacked further? Like, what is it about being a human to you that, like, or because obviously I guess you're seeing it like other humans as like a mirror, because
Yeah.
we don't share the experiences. What is it in yourself that you think is valuable to protect, or other humans?
I'm not sure. I the only grounds I have is that I'm also a human. I wouldn't know how to answer that.
See, do you want me to give my answer to kind of like?
Can I guess what your answer
Yeah,
is?
go on.
Is it sentience? Is it that we are able to feel?
Yeah, it's like the experience, because I don't think humans are all having the same experience or anything. It's just the experience itself. It's the propensity, because you could have a human being who doesn't actually feel physical pain, but I'd still like value them. You know, that it's the experience. You know, that everything I'm seeing and everything others are seeing. I'm not a solipsist. I assume you are seeing things and experiencing and feeling. Yeah, that is the thing that I value. I don't really know what else to value. That's where all the value to me is. So yeah, I'm just, that's why I've got to the position I have, because the things that I value in myself and that I value in other humans are shared by these other animals. Like, because if you want to say, oh, well, humans are intelligent, but other animals aren't, it's like, not all humans are.
What is intelligence, right?
Well, yeah, what is intelligence firstly? Like, yeah, is it being able to math good, or is it being able to tell when someone's upset? Like, but then humans don't share that. If we want to talk about the ability to build things, I can't build shit. I'm not a DIY lesbian. I'm just a lesbian.
Yeah.
You know, like, or is it, you know, the fact that we can, you know, language? Well, some humans can't do that. Some just have basic communication. And so it's just like, as soon as I start questioning what it is I value in myself and the other humans, well, oops, like, it's the experience. And it can't just be these specific things, because otherwise I have to condemn some groups of humans to being perpetually killed, or, you know, I have to include the animals here. And I really think that including the animals is so much better and easier. And if you have the value that it's important to minimize harm, and you are concerned about the environmental harm that humans have and the human harm, then veganism is one of those answers to that problem.
Yeah,
So,
I hope I didn't come across this way, but I'm not against veganism, you know. I even maybe one day will become a vegan, who knows.
You better
But
tell me all about it, okay, when you do.
yeah, certainly. But do you mind if I ask you one question about some of your videos and the contents that you've shared?
Yeah, of course. Can I just address one thing before you do, and then you can ask
Sure,
away?
sure. Yeah.
Because I just want to say, because I guess the kind of like the debate part really like has been satisfied. Would you say like
Yeah.
I've got
I
the
mean, I didn't really mean to try to debate. I
well,
wanted to
no
just,
matter. I was
yeah,
challenging your views, and you're
sure.
potentially challenging mine. So I don't really know what else to call it, but
Yeah.
I do want to say like. And again, I don't mean to come off a certain way, but it probably will. I can't. But
Okay.
I don't mind if people are for veganism or not. I'm just concerned because I'm not the the victim, if they're in the camp or not. Like it's whether or
Hmm.
not if you instead of making it about veganism itself, like if we bring it to like the oppressed, like the animals, then
Hmm.
it kind of puts it into better perspective. Like it's like, are
Hmm.
you for veganism doesn't really matter. It's more like, are you an ally to the animals or not? Are you
Hmm. Hmm.
avoiding their harm or not? That would be the kind of vegan position more. But sorry, yeah, just ask
Are you
away.
asking me that question?
No, I just wanted to clarify that when people
Okay.
say it comes across as I'd call it like lip service, like to say, oh yeah, I'm not like against it or anything, because it's not the veganism that's important. I know obviously it's entailment, so maybe what you mean, but it's whether or not you're for the animals, or you're protecting them, you're avoiding their harm, or you're paying for their rights violations. That's kind of more the context. That was just the thing I wanted to point out. But
Hmm.
if you have any comments on that, and then feel free. But if not, you ask the questions you were going to ask.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think sometimes we hyperfixate on like, oh, I'm a vegan and I'm within this community. But I think in many times a lot of our perspectives actually align that like certain activities are bad. I don't know, like exotic animal touristing is like, not good for the animals. They're being exploited. And I,
Yeah.
I agree. I wouldn't want to attend those kind of events. And I think so in many ways our positions actually align, but just me not being a vegan, I think sometimes we hyperfixate on that difference and we're like, have this animosity. And I think that's kind of counterproductive to improving animals' lives as a whole.
Well, so say for example, let's take another position like homophobia.
Okay.
If someone said, "Oh, I'm anti-homophobic. I'm against homophobia," but then in some like they did something very integral, like they voted against queer people in law and were responsible partially for passing bills that exploited or harmed like queer people. Would you take an issue with their apparent allyship?
Man, maybe I might question that. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like what if someone's
I
against
see what you're
domestic,
doing here.
yeah, like what
Yeah.
if someone's against domestic violence, but they on Mondays they gaslight their partner or like tell them
Yeah.
they're ugly, or or
Hmm.
punch them, like it to be like, well, you say you're against this, but your actions are not actually telling me that, they're telling me the
Yeah.
opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, I see where you're going, and this is actually perfect segue for the question
Okay.
I had in mind asking you. In one of your videos, you mentioned if you're not a vegan, then can you truly love animals?
Yeah.
And you kind of positioned yourself, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in a way that said like, no, like I wouldn't like you can't say I love dogs and then eat dogs kind of thing. Is that am I getting that right?
So can you remind me, do you know when that was?
Oh man, I
Yeah, that's
can't
how I'm
remember.
asking
It
you.
it it was one of the videos. I can't I sorry, I wouldn't be able to tell you which title, but I know you mentioned kind of I can't remember if it was the entire video or part of a video you mentioned that if you're a
Yeah.
non-vegan, can you still love animals? That
So
question.
yeah, yeah. So sorry. What's your question? And then I'll.
Well, I mean, do you from what I saw in that video,
Mm.
it seemed like your answer was no. If you're not a vegan, you can't truly love animals. And I wanted to question if that was correct or not. Is that true?
Yeah, the reason I ask is because I also made a video about like on loving animals, where I talk about like our idea of love. Like I critique the term love itself and how it's applied. So sorry if this doesn't
Okay.
seem relevant at first, but
No,
my
I'll let you cook.
yeah. So let her cook. Yeah. So my problem, like initially, is kind of with the term love. Like, if we're using it the way that I think like is actually deemed to mean, then no, I don't think you can love animals. But I think people use the term love in a different way. Like, people seem to use it like in a way where they extrinsically, it's like what someone can do for them, like it's extrinsic. It's not like an intrinsic love or intrinsic value, like for that person, like separate of our existence. So that's why, like, but so for me, when I love someone, like, I value them. I think their existence matters, and I passionately like feel like that value for them. That's what I mean by love. So I don't think you can value someone. I don't think you can like genuinely feel that while you pay for their body parts in a sandwich. But if it's just kind of this kind of thing you say to say, oh, I really like how I feel when I see this individual, maybe you could, but like I wouldn't. If someone said they loved me while they chopped me up or hurt me in any way, I like, if someone like is nasty to me and they say they love me, I don't believe that. So that's where it's coming from there. So
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm asking that was because, I have a few friends that are veterinarians and they went to vet school, and the level of effort they devote to the care of animals is incredible. Like it's not an easy process. They study, essentially every day of the week, day to night. I only have respect for these people, but some of them, they're not vegan. But I wouldn't go as far as to say that they don't love animals. I think they truly love animals for them to be able to devote so much effort and time. So I kind of disagreed with your view, but now that you elaborated what you meant by love, I guess I kind of, that adds a bit more nuance to what you meant there.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated. Like say someone who runs an anti-domestic abuse charity, they could say they love their spouse while harming them. Like they could say that, but like for what I understand love to be, I don't think you could. You could be so against like domestic abuse, you could have a charity and still, domestically abuse somebody and then claim to love them. Like there are people who do that. But for me, fundamentally, from my understanding of what it means to love, I just couldn't do that to someone who I actually love. So, but I know love is one of those words I think just kind of gets thrown out,
Yeah.
It's like literally,
Yeah.
like I literally am gonna die.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it doesn't mean what it means anymore, I don't think. But maybe that's my misunderstanding of the term. But yeah, I
Right.
couldn't have those feelings towards someone or value them while doing that.
Yeah, fair. I had one more final question. The last time I was in your YouTube live and I was in the chat and I was talking to another individual in the comment section, they actually said that veganism is not about animal welfare. This was, I had thought veganism is about the welfare of animals and improving them, but they had pointed out that it's about animal liberation.
Like
And
animal
so
rights, yeah.
yeah, and so since then I was even confused of what even is veganism, and sorry, I'm coming from a place of complete ignorance. I'm not educated on veganism. Can you enlighten me on what is veganism and what the advocacy is for? Like what is the goal, I guess?
Yeah, so fundamentally, like, obviously there's going to be some disagreement. It's an entire movement. So I'm going to just speak on the entire community here. But yeah, it's fundamentally to grant negative rights to, other species of animal, like who are sentient beings, who are subjects. So do you know what I mean by negative rights, right?
Can you just clarify?
Yeah,
I'm kind of assuming what you might mean
yeah,
from the context.
So like a negative right would be the right not to be killed, the right not to be exploited, not to be stabbed. Like it's not like we want to give a chicken the right to vote, or anything like that. Just fundamentally giving them basic, granting them basic protections and granting them their basic negative rights that someone like me would believe that they inherently have anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, so it would be to kind of align that like legally and societally, culturally, so that they are also considered in the process. So all these things that we're talking about, like you mentioned things like crop deaths earlier, it'd be a case of, it'd just be, the way I see it is, like say with cars, we invented cars and then they got faster, and then we were like, oh, we got to protect the humans so that, less humans get harmed, or or there's protections when someone does it on purpose. So then in law we made it so that you have to have certain traffic lights, lighting systems. There's penalties if you run someone over. It would be like we implement specific rules and conditions to just consider those animals as well. That's what I would say veganism is striving to do.
Okay, and how is that different from animal welfare? Because my understanding of animal welfare is based on the 5 freedoms of animal welfare, which is essentially the freedom from hunger, the freedom from pain. I think that what you described is really similar to animal welfare, but someone in the comment said it's not about animal welfare, it's about animal liberation, and I found that hard to understand the difference.
Yeah, okay, so when we talk about animal welfare, they're talking about things like, let's make the cage bigger. Let's give them more room to roam, but we're going to still stab them. It's like, let's make life better for them, until we do this thing that I would take to be bad. So,
sure.
So a liberationist, so let's put it in a human context. So you have human welfare and human rights. Okay. So a human welfare activist, and there were people in the past that said, look at this different type of person. Okay. Like a woman. Okay. They can't vote. Don't let them vote. Okay. Don't even let them, you can actually assault them if you are married to them. This is kind of like welfare. But a woman's rights or human rights activist in that sense would be like, hang on, no, a woman should have the right to vote. A woman should have autonomy over her body. So that's the difference. It's like, let's improve this thing that fundamentally someone who cares about the individual's rights and minimizing the harm, it's just let's minimize the harm in this context that exists, but the liberationists or the rights activists there,
let's not do it all together.
It was questions the fact it happens in the first place. So the welfare, though it's my preference that the animals don't starve to death before they're killed, versus if I have this kind of dichotomy, I think this is so bad, obviously my preference, gun to my head, I've only got those 2 options, I'm going to pick the one with higher welfare, probably. Sure. But I'm saying that's not a dichotomy, the dichotomy that I need to pick, so let's not do that.
I see. Okay. Thanks. That was kind of the confusion I had, and thanks for kind of elaborating that.
That's okay. Were there any more questions or anything?
Or
why
not
you got a
really.
Vegan here?
Sorry, what's that?
Why you got a vegan here?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think I had enough of a lot of challenging questions, and I really appreciate you asking me these questions. I'm always learning, and I really appreciate your time and effort and just sharing your perspective.
Well, thank you for coming on in good faith. I really appreciate it. I much prefer it than a good old shouting match. Very stressful, very upsetting to me.
Yeah, I've seen some of your other debates, and it was just, even from the viewer, I was like, what are you even talking about? So I think these conversations are much better. And if I were to say that, take away anything, I just say, could you really watch a trillion Supermans be perpetually exploited and killed? Because that's what's currently the position is pushing you to, because he's an alien, a sexy alien, albeit. So if you want to kind of think your position through a bit more, and you said challenging questions have been had, if you change your position, you want to come back to the drawing board and talk again, then I'm all down for that. I'm not the best. I appreciate that
person to talk to. I'm not the best representative of veganism or anything. There are some really good debaters and stuff, but I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know anyone else. You're the only vegan YouTuber that I kind of stumbled across. So,
Oh, based. Okay. Well, yeah. If anyone in the chat wants to recommend their favorite vegan YouTuber.
Oh, I'm actually not in the chat, so I wouldn't know what they're saying.
Get in the chat. I mean, that was actually a smart move. Okay, but the people are saying that they like you. You're honest.
Oh, that's great.
People are calling me a liar and saying I love a dishonest and painful debate. Yeah, I love it. I am a masochist. But yeah, okay. Well, if there was nothing else further, then thank you for coming on, and you're welcome to come on again if you want a question.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for your time, and thanks to the people in your stream for welcoming me and giving me their time.
And maybe you'll be a salad one day. Okay.
Yeah, maybe one day. Who knows?
Yeah,
I'll make sure to let you know.
Yeah, you let me know, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't come back to me and be like, actually, I've stabbed like 30 animals. I've gone down this route where I just don't care about harm at all.
Oh no!
I will be very upset. Just to let you know.
Yeah, I know you won't be the only one. The entire community will be up at my throat. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Anyways, take care. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, see, wasn't that lovely? Oh my. That is how I want it to go, okay? Honest conversation. That's what happens, all right? I like him. Can we keep him? I like him too. Kai, salad one day, okay, please?